way I want to do my show. I do my own due diligence, and nobody's going to tell me how to do due diligence about something that is coming up into international law that's going to change the face of the earth, and on a science does not have the consensus. I will interview who I want, when I want. I will ask whatever questions I want, and I'm not gonna bow down to being told who I should and shouldn't interview. But
well, now that, you see, is exactly what this banker said to me. He said the other side told him he wasn't even allowed to ask the question, or he would be marked down and penalized in business because he was a climate skeptic.
Yeah, he called me a climate denier, and I said, and furthermore, sir.
Oh, yes, they do. They threaten you, they call you names, they call you denialists.
It was unbelievable.
The Holocaust, I mean, it's outrageous. But the thing is that what he said was that my tone in speaking to him had been reasoned. You know, I wasn't here campaigning about anything. I was just saying to him, here's what the science says as best I can make it out. It's clear there's a division of opinion, but insofar as I can look at it and try and make out who's right, I think that it's probably the people who are not true believers in the new superstition, because they are the ones who, when I ask them questions, give me detailed answers, detailed calculations, references in literature, take me seriously, whereas the other side are simply preachy. And I think you found the same.
I'll tell you what is absolutely frightening to me. There's three key components that are frightening. If, in fact, carbon dioxide is the seed, the ground of which this new industrial complex and its articulate laws, binding laws and treaties is an outgrowth of, and the facts about carbon are falsified, that means that the public is going to ingest a falsity, since we're made of carbon, and carbon is the breath of life. So Sherwood Itzo, who's dedicated 40 years of his life to this is so wild. How is it that a new industrial complex can be ushered in and hijack all of the people who do care about the environment? And by the way, I'm one of them. I've really been concerned about the environment, but I'll tell you what, I am not willing to agree that carbon is a pollution. I'm not willing to have the science falsified. I'm not willing to go with the flow and just like a sheep to the slaughter and say this treaty, which I haven't read, but which I've seen parts of it, is frightening. It really is the beginning, the face of the new government, is it not?
Well, the scale on which the bureaucratic coup d'etat that is planned is going to take place, if they get away with it, is enormous, and it can't be overstated. I've drafted international treaties, I've negotiated them, I've interpreted them at a pretty high level in government, and I have never seen anything on this scale transferred to an international entity before. The right to impose taxes on the West to the equivalent of half of the US defense budget every year, in addition to impose transaction taxes on all cross-border financial transactions of 2% of the value of that transaction, the ability to levy unlimited taxes and fines on airlines who have been singled out for particular hatred by the new entity, the creation of 700 new interlocking bureaucracies, each of which will be funded by taxpayers only in the West, the selective hammering of the West financially and in every other way by this new entity, so that all the jobs that now happen in our manufacturing and service industries will stream overseas to places like China and India, who will not be bound by this treaty and have said they won't be bound by it. The scale of the ambition of the UN's bureaucrats combined with world leaders around the world, even in the West, to do down the taxpayers of the West and the ordinary guy who thought that he was in control of his government because he could vote in and out whoever he wanted. The scale on which they're going to set up what is effectively a communistic world government. I say communistic for two reasons. One, in the 186 pages of the original draft, in the 40 or 50 pages of the draft that they find it down to now, the words election, democracy, ballot, and vote do not occur even once in connection with the democratic choice of the people who will compose these 700 new bureaucracies and the enormous powers they're going to have. So the principle of no taxation without representation is going to be breached, and breached on a most monstrous scale. People will have money taken from them at a rate of knots that they could never have believed possible before, and they will have nothing to show for it except unemployment, misery, and the collapse of the industries and the economic strength of the West. This treaty is a dagger aimed at the heart of Western democracy, freedom, and prosperity. And I just pray that whatever little we can do in the days remaining of us while we are still free, we can prevent this nonsense from happening, because it's happening just at the moment when the pretext for it, which is that carbon dioxide is somehow an endangerment, as the EPA has tried to say today, has been firmly and decisively disproven in the recent scientific literature.
The other big concern I have with this is that there is the enabling of an international monitoring apparatus with its attendant technologies to monitor CO2. It is Big Brother at the most virulent level, is it not?
Oh, yes, and it's already begun in Britain, which has long been a dictatorship run by commissars in Europe whom we don't elect and can't remove. We've already got a kind of world government on the regional level.
Didn't France?
Our parliament has abdicated and given its powers to unelected commissars whom we can't remove, can't replace, can't hold to account, can't even question. These commissars have dictated, for instance, that there shall be a microchip in every rubbish bin to make sure that each individual citizen throws the right pieces of paper into the right bin. And if they don't, then the thought police descend and take them away. And this is the sort of problem we are already into here in the UK, and it's going to get worse.
We have
a ludicrous figure who's the head of our environment agency in the UK, who has said that everyone will in future have to have a carbon credit card, and you're only allowed to emit so many tons of carbon footprint every year. And once you're up to your allocation, you've either got to buy an allocation from somebody else or starve. This is how ludicrous it is. It's going to be socialist rationing on the most meticulous and miserable scale of intrusiveness. As you rightly say, the snooping, there'll be cameras everywhere, inspectors with clipboards wandering around your home, filtering through your rubbish bins, your garbage bins. There's going to be no end of bureaucrats making a fortune at your expense and making your life miserable if any of this goes any further. And the horrifying thing about it is that there's absolutely no need for it. And even if there were any sort of threat from carbon dioxide, even if the UN hadn't, as it has, exaggerated the effect of CO2 in causing warming in the atmosphere between 3 and 6-fold, depending on which scientific paper you read, even if that were not the case, we would have to close down all of our industries for 23 years. That means a complete shutdown of the economy, going back to the Stone Age without even the right to light a carbon-emitting fire in our caves in order to forestall just 1 Fahrenheit degree of temperature increase. And that's if the UN's right about the warming effect of CO2. If it isn't right, make that more like 200 years for 1 Fahrenheit of CO2. Now, clearly, 200 years of total economic shutdown just to prevent 1 Fahrenheit of warming is absurdly disproportionate. The number of deaths that would cause, it would wipe out about 5 billion of the 7 billion on the planet.
Well, maybe that's the intent.
Well, it may be that this is their aim. I don't know, because unfortunately so much of this has been done in the dark, behind closed doors, by people that we cannot trust because they will not trust us to tell us what they're about, that I can't tell you what their motives are. All I can say is that having read the ClimateGate emails, which reveal a vast conspiracy between all the leading scientific institutions and scientists working with the UN on its climate panel, these people are very nasty people. They are malevolent people. You read the emails, they are full of hate and spite and nastiness and cheating and fraud. And everyone who's been reading these emails, including those who previously supported this climate nonsense, is now saying, what on earth have we done agreeing with these people without having checked? And I, at least, can be proud to say